answers. Why please then you are all journalists. I believe that same questions has to be different. You try to avoid key you have question B, can you repeat that? It takes our time. Time is not waiting for any of us. So that being the case, no regular ñaan. So some moromi journalist you have question B, mu answer ko. Next person B ñëw. Su fekkee ne loolu woon question am sax, please not try to change ko dan mu ñëw ñu repeat that. So jërë ngeen jëf loolu laa amoon pour just start with. Then the rest will be in the hands of the high table before His Excellency starts his statement.
Okay. Good afternoon. I will start with the high table here. Good afternoon to our president here, which is Honorable Ibrahim Taboramane. Next is Matar Sose. And the next is Yusuf Sise. And good afternoon to all journalists present here. We welcome you here today for this press conference of the newly born baby of the political history of the Gambia, which is the People's Alliance Party. Today is a historic day. We will have this press conference by letting our able president, Honorable Ibrahim Taboramane, give out a statement. From there, we will listen to the journalists for questions and answers. But as Matar Sose just rightly mentioned in the local language, we would like the questions to be precise and not also we avoid repeating questions because time is against us and we all know time is precious. So in that note, we will leave the floor to His Excellency Honorable Ibrahim Taboramane to give out the statement.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. I must start by thanking Allah and saying Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. I think the press are my friends. We've been here before, we've done this before. Was it last year or early this year? As you all know then, we've initiated the process of registering a political party. And finally, and so most of you are aware now that the party has been registered. And because it's been registered, I think it's right, one, to come and thank those who have been involved since the initiation or when the idea was conceived to set up a political party. To thank my family, my wife and my moms, and my siblings, and close family relatives, my neighbors, the PAP family, and the press as well, and all Gambians who were steadfast and supportive of this movement since we initiated the registering of the political party. I'm really thankful to every single individual for all the efforts that have been made towards the creation of this political party. No amount of words can convey the depth of gratitude that I have for the supporters of PAP and to Gambians as a whole. I think we've mentioned, for your information, the party that we try to register is known as the People's Alliance Party. And finally, it's been registered on Monday, the 7th of November, 2022. That was the birth of a new political party. And I understand we are the 19th political party in the Gambia. And we won't belabor you or waste your time, to go through the process since the commencement up to date. But it's just to show our gratitude. Political parties in the Gambia. why we haven't joined other political parties. And I think this was mentioned before. I said before we even started, the initiation of setting up a political party, we started with a manifesto. And the manifesto was built based on the problems of the country. First, we identified the problems. We discussed with Gambians across the length and the breadth of the country, in every nook and cranny of this country, to know the problems and to provide solutions to the problems. So we have a manifesto that will be available, to the media and to the general public, at least to go through the manifesto in detail to understand what we wanted to do or what we plan to do for the country. This has mentioned before, and I think every sound-minded Gambian knows that the Gambia is going through lots of sorts. We're going through lots of problems. We are going through lots of challenges. We have so many crises, or security issues, if you may. We have food crisis, or food security issues. We have financial crisis, financial security issues. We have energy crisis. And there's even physical crisis now. I cannot imagine of a people who are more resilient than Gambians, because the challenges that we're going through, that we've been able to endure up to this point, I think Gambians deserve better. We deserve better, and we can do better. And no one, no individual, no institution, no country will come to rescue Gambians, but we can only do it by ourselves, by our own efforts. And that's why we said that we look at all the other political parties, we look at the needs of the country, we came up with an agenda, with a plan, with solutions that we believe sincerely will solve the needs of this country. Like I said, I'll go through the manifesto, just through a few points, a few pointers, not in detail, but you will get to understand. There are 4 critical areas that I have always challenged, that I have always questioned in this country, and that centers around the government. 1, I said our government, the government that represents us, that we've entrusted with the resources of this country, with the direction that they should take to steer this country to a better path, so that the Gambia can be successful, so that we can have hope in our country, so that the children, those who will come after us, will live in a society that is better than the one that we live in today. And unfortunately, all things are fallen apart, or they fell apart. The government, I've always said this, should be a representation of Gambians. It doesn't mean that you elect the governments, they go there, and then because they've been elected, they're sitting there. But they should be there for the interest of the citizenry, for the interest of Gambians, and for the interest of the country. And we believe that is very lacking in the country. Secondly, we said our economy. This is something that I have always mentioned. We said our economy, as far as Gambians are concerned, we are minority players. And because we are the key stakeholders in this country, we should be the majority players in the economic sector as well. And every Gambian, knows that we are not in charge of our economy. So there's a question about our government representing us, to the best of what we expect of any responsible government. Our economy is not in our hands. It is being controlled by others. Our security, there are so many security challenges in this country. And I believe that security, just like the economy, should be handled entirely, 100% by Gambians. You can have sectors of the economy that can be controlled by others that are not Gambians. But the security must be 100% controlled by Gambians. From our borders, from within our streets, from our state house, everywhere you go should be secured by Gambians. That's an area that we should never compromise. Then thirdly, there is the issue of Gambians coming together as one. There is a lot of polarization in politics. There is a lot of division in politics across several sectoral lines, whether it's religious, whether it's political, whether it's tribal. And this must be nipped in the bud. Most of us are believers. Most Gambians here are Muslims and Christians as well. And our faith, our belief, our religion has taught us that we are all the creation of God. And for that matter, I can tell you about Muslims. It's in Surah Al-Hujurat, Surah 49, verse 13. This is Allah speaking in the Quran, that He said, this is God speaking, that He said He has created us from men and women, and then made us into nations and tribes. Made us into nations and tribes. We know that we came from male and female. There's no doubt about that. And we know that we are made up of nations and tribes. I mean, or people, if you may. Nations are our Gambia, our Senegal, our Mali, I mean, our genus, the US, Europe, different countries in Europe. Some are Chinese, some are Africans, some are Indians, some are blacks. And that is God's doing. But He said, the most noble among you are the ones who have faith, who are fearful of God, who are honest, who are good. Now, I challenge every Gambian, why must we, as citizens of this country, accept to be backward, to be a backward country and a backward people? Why must we accept European countries to be better than us, or Americans to be better than us? I mean, it's like this is ingrained in us that the American is better, has more knowledge, has more money, deserves a better standard of living. The same applies to, the European, the same applies to the Chinese and to the Indian. We accept that backwardness. And we must challenge that. It can be changed. It must be changed. And it has to start from the top. It has to start from the leadership. The leadership must have this belief that they are equal to their partners in other countries. You see, it's very unfortunate. You will have one president in Europe, whether it's France or England. If they want, they will summon all African countries from 52 countries. It's like they are not their equals. They are treating them like they are below their standard. And our people accept that. I mean, if the president of France calls Africans today and tell them that he wanted to see them, the next day, they will, no matter what agenda they have, they will leave everything and run to France. The same thing if the Chinese call them. The same thing if the Americans call them. I mean, if you dare an African to call the president of the US or France to come here, I mean, they would send someone who may be an undersecretary, because they don't take us seriously, because we don't take ourselves seriously, because we are not proud of ourselves, because we haven't come together as one. We have this infighting that is put between us among politicians to make us believe that there are differences. And you know why? Because politicians, they want to entrench themselves. Africans, you've heard that, we've witnessed it, it's happening everywhere. An African president will come, they will make all kinds of fancy promises that I will come and be in governance for 5 years or 10 years. After 2 terms, I'll be gone. After 2 terms, they will change the entire agenda. They will want to stay forever. And whilst they're doing that, they're impoverishing the rest of us. And they are pitching us against each other, telling us that, you don't have to believe this group, you don't have to trust this group. I mean, walk along this, whether it's a tribal line or religious line or regional line or sectarian line, and we accept it. It has to change. And change can come from nowhere, but from us. Don't expect the head of state to make any changes. Don't expect your minister to make the changes for you. Don't expect us to be bailed out by the outside world. I mean, there is globalization now. And every country that you know in this world now is looking for their interest. And that has always been the case. Unfortunately for us, our people don't look at the interests of Africans. They don't look at the interests of Gambians. It is very unfortunate and it's very disheartening. I've mentioned this several times, that when we leave our countries, you've seen the number of Gambians, Africans, who use the back road, the back way. They call it the Barclay syndrome, because there is no hope in our countries. Because we know that there are no opportunities in this country, but there are no opportunities for the masses. But those who are in the corridors of power have all the opportunities. Their children are sent to the best schools. And when the children come back, they can easily find meaningful employment. You and me, the rest of us, we struggle. And whilst we are struggling, they impoverish us and they encourage us to fight against each other. Africans must wake up and take ownership. And Africa is very big. Africans, we can do whatever we want to do. If we believe in ourselves, if we trust ourselves, we don't have to be like the Westerners. We are never going to be Americans or Europeans or the Arabs. We are Africans. First, we must believe that. We must believe in ourselves. We must believe in our values. We must believe in our traditions. If not, if we give up those things, we will believe anything that is given to us, that is brought our way. And that is why we cannot succeed. That is why we are failing. I've mentioned those 4 areas that are very critical in terms of development. But my fear is what I have seen lately. Gambia has very few resources, very small resources. And those are mostly the human resources. We are less than 2 million people. We should have been the best country in the world. 2 million people. That is less than a city in certain countries. That is less than a town in some countries. We are 100 of the population of certain countries. We are only 2 million. Some countries are 20 million. Some countries are 200 million. And they are able to manage. They are able to survive. They are able to provide their entire country. Imagine a country of 20 million people or 200 million people, and they are able to provide them with their basic needs in the form of, food. There's adequate food for 20 million people, for 200 million people. And in the Gambia, with only 2 million people, we cannot get enough food for our people. Electricity, you go to countries, 200 million people, they provide electricity for 200 million people, for 20 million people. But for us, only 2 million people, even in this Kololi area, there's energy problem. So it means we are failing in every sector. Our road networks are a problem. The healthcare system is a problem. In fact, I don't know of a single sector that I can boast of and be proud of. And we attained our independence, almost getting close to 60 years. We have failed miserably. Those in power, it doesn't mean that they are not trying, but they are not trying enough. And we must not be complacent. We must not be satisfied with the little trials that they are doing. They are trying, yes, but the efforts and what they are trying is too small for our needs, because we have failed in all sectors. Then we have our land. That is very critical. That is a very important sector. The resources are the human resources. 2 million, we can do anything. But then we have land, and for the Gambian, land is very small. For our people, if we are not careful, we are all going to be renters in our own country. The average Gambian who is working, the salary that they are making. The average Gambian, the salary earner, what they make in a month is very small. But let's say, we even go to the middle class, what we'll consider here middle class, somebody who is being paid like $25,000. I'll tell you that is not enough to sustain a single family. That is the husband and the wife, and maybe 2 children or 3 children. If you want to pay out of 25,000, you want to pay, rent, you want to pay for water and electricity and your, daily food and the kids' school, that is not even enough for you. So if you're making 20 to 25,000, imagine how long will it take for you to save enough to be able to buy a piece of land. And you know how much a piece of land is in this greater Banjul area? Now you'll be lucky if you can buy a piece of land for 300 or 400,000. Now they're talking about 500,000, $1 million. And what is happening? Because our people, they don't have a good foresight. They are disposing, they are selling all, major lands within the Greater Banjul area for now. We'll concentrate on that. They're disposing those properties because the average Gambian cannot afford it. They cannot even raise enough money to buy an empty land, much more to develop the land. So if you cannot buy land, if properties are not affordable to the average Gambians in their own country, those properties will be bought by others who are non-Gambians. And they will build the properties, and the rest of the Gambians will be renting. Would you prefer to be renting and then your children to continue to be renting? And because the land mass is very small, key areas are being bought by certain landholders, especially non-Gambians. And when those things are purchased, when they buy them, they build houses, they rent it to us. So the rest of us, we're going to be like immigrants in our own country. Because to boast of citizenship is to have certain rights, certain privileges that are not available to others who are not citizens of your country. But here in our country, our government is controlled by others who are non-Gambians. You should know that more than me. If you don't have the money, somebody with $5 million is $10 million is who contributes to a government. They can easily see anybody they want to see in government. The rest of you, you'll be lucky if you're a journalist and then you go and see them. Otherwise, they don't care about you. And that's what prevails all over Africa. And it has to change. If we are not meaningful players in our economy, the economy is controlled mostly by non-Gambians. So what are we? We are simple consumers. That means every money that comes to you is to be used to buy your daily needs. So eventually, we have no roles in the economic sector. And that is what is happening in this country. And what baffles me the most is that you will see somebody who comes to this country, they open up their own business. Let's say they're selling building materials. And in the building materials shop, they do the investment. Not much, but they would hardly hire Gambians. They will bring in non-Gambians from other countries to be cashiers, to be storekeepers. And our political people, they're afraid to mention these things. Because the concern is that if you mention about it, they won't give you the funding that you need. And for us, we have trust in Gambians. We have faith in Gambians. And we are trying to be very sincere, to pronounce the problems that we are facing as a nation, and to take ownership of our country. It doesn't mean that we are not going to invite non-Gambians in our country. Of course, they are welcome. You know the amount of Gambians in foreign lands. They are more than 100 or maybe even 200,000 Gambians who are living all over the world. Anywhere you go now, they are Gambians. Whether in the Arab countries, in Europe, whether it's in the US, whether it's in Asia, there are Gambians everywhere. And they are our family, they are sweating, they are working, and the monies that they are sending in helps the Gambia a lot. But I want our governments to learn what those people, those Gambians who are in foreign lands, what they are doing there. They are not even given the opportunity to have any meaningful say in the government. They have no say in the government. They have hardly any say in the economic activities of those countries. Because you know what those countries have in those economies. I want you guys to research and find out about Dubai. Dubai, you know, the majority of people in Dubai are non-citizens of that country. But for you to open even certain businesses in that country, you must partner with a citizen of Dubai. And they will be mostly majority shareholders, 51%, because they want to empower their citizens. They want to make sure that they are in control of their economy. They want to uplift the living standards of their people. This is what all sensible governments do. If you go to China, they were very poor. If you go like 30, 40 years ago, they were very poor. If you go to Singapore, they had their independence with the Gambia almost at the same time. They came with a vision. They have no resources. They have a foresight. They have very good leadership. They were very principled. They love their people. They care for their people. They wanted to change their lives, and that's what they have done. But unfortunately for us, our people are not serious. We have to be honest to each other, and we must face reality. We'll make lots of enemies. People will not like it, but that's the reality. If it must change, it has to start from our very own people. We must demand that we have to get better things, that the excuses that have been given. Every time you mention about NAWEC, there's an excuse. When you talk about the road networks, there's an excuse. Everything, there's a simple excuse for it. Even the war in Ukraine. Most Gambians never even heard of Ukraine. Now everybody is using Ukraine as an excuse. I mean, saying that yes, because there's war in Ukraine, prices have gone up. I mean, and because of that, energy has gone up, so living standards are very difficult. If you cannot do it, please give chance to others who can do it. It doesn't have to be me, but it has to be somebody that Gambians trust. But we have to start demanding more than what is being given to us. Our roads, I've mentioned this several times. We're not even building our own roads. It's very unfortunate. And if we build the roads, they are substandard roads. Must we continue living like this? Roads that are very easy to build. We cannot do it ourselves. I mean, the Gambians, you listening to me, I mean, I'm sure some would think that it's just political saying. I mean, like, because politicians, I mean, I mentioned this. I think the last time when I was at the IEC, somebody asked me a question, and I mentioned that, yes, politicians, I know they're sweet tongue. They can talk well and give all kinds of promises after they fail. But I said that I have mentioned to you guys before here that I am not a politician. But, you know, they said because I'm in the arena, I have to accept that I'm a politician. I said, yes, I agree now. I'm a politician, but a different politician. But I am not a politrician. And I'll tell you that they're a politician, Politician. That is our normal politician. Yes, they can, you know, play games and what have you. I'm not the one who play games. I mean, whatever I say, I mean. And I only try to say things that I mean, that I full-heartedly believe. Because, you know, in this life, we have a short time. It's better to work to leave a legacy than to amass some ill-gotten wealth. I mean, my principles and my belief is that whatever you have the wrong way will come to haunt you one way or the other. And whatever you are able to achieve legally, and that is good, I mean, the benefit will remain forever. So I'm not the kind who will come to fool Gambians. But you know, I said politicians, and then there are politricians. P-O-L-Y is many. For short, P-O-L-Y, many. That's tricks. You all know tricks. Magicians, they play tricks. They you know, make a sleight of hands. They show you this, and then before you know, it's a rabbit or it's. So politricians, they have many ways of playing tricks with you. They play with your mind. They play to the gallery. They tell you what you want to hear. I mean, when sincerely they don't mean it. So that's why you see people today, they are black, tomorrow they are white. Today they believe in this, tomorrow they believe in that. And it doesn't mean that I am rigid. I'm very flexible. I mean, because in life, not only what you believe is always 100% right. So you have to be flexible to accept certain things. But there are other things that you should sincerely believe, and once you believe in them and they are right, you should follow them through and through. And when it comes to government, I think every president should seek a legacy. Not to make money, not to enrich themselves or their families or their surrogates or their supporters. But every leader should try to leave a legacy that will come after them even when they are gone. I mean, that's where we are. I mean, as a country, we are very poor, we are very backward, we have no hope. Now for that to change, no one will do it but us. But first we must start by uniting. Let us unite our tribes. Let us unite our religions. Let us unite our regions. Let us not allow any politician or politics to divide us. Let us please start with that first and see the difference. Let us love each other. Let us love our countrymen. Let us love our country. Let us be willing to sacrifice, not negatively, but to put in more energy, more resources, more time for the advancement of this country. And we are at a stage whereby we must be the foundation. The foundation, you know, the foundation of a building is what holds the building, but it's usually underground. It is buried underground. You won't see the foundation, but it's the one that held the structure. So you can see a very beautiful house with these nice ceilings and nice paintings, but it's the foundation that holds it together. So we must bring our people together. We make that the foundation, and we work meaningfully together for the development of this country. If we are sincere in our efforts, if we are willing to come together to better this country, I am telling you, within 5 years, we will see changes that no one has ever imagined. You know, we've mentioned this. I said, if I've heard they were talking about the budgets and the fuel crisis and what have you. I thought the government would be smart enough to maybe pick and choose a few of our ideas that we proposed, and we made this public. In fact, our manifesto, we made it public, earlier on in 2021. We published it in the newspapers so that they can pick and choose ideas that will be worthwhile. We said, okay, Gambia, we have 7 regions. Divide, take enough money in your budget. Let's say we started with $700 million. If you look at our budget, it's more than 30,000 million. The amount of money that is spent. The amount of money that is spent in OP alone, Office of the President alone, is more than $600 million. We said, okay, allocate 700 million in the budget. Out of 30,000 million, just take 700 million. Imagine, out of 30,000, you take 700 million and said for each region in the Gambia, we will allocate 100 million for employment. Because there is employment crisis in this country. There is absolutely no employment. If you travel in the rural areas, I spent most of my weekend going to the rural areas. What the people do in those areas are just farming. That is the only thing they do. There's no employment. There are no companies. There are no meaningful shops. All they can do is farming. And now because they have to do farming, they don't have materials. They don't have seedlings. They don't have fertilizers. They cannot do proper and adequate farming anymore. So they've been neglected at the mercy of, their own efforts. So they cannot grow. Farming is dying because it's been neglected. So we said, okay, allocate 100 million to every region and create meaningful employment. And we'll be willing to tell them things that they can do to change certain areas. But I've seen a budget will be proposed, or maybe it's out now, for 2023. I hope the government will put that into consideration. We said, okay, let's have 100 million in each region. Every year, 100 million in NBR, 100 million in URR, 100 million in CRR, to create employment, serious employment. Not, to fleece money, not to make some, white elephant projects that have no value, no meaning to Gambians. That is what is happening mostly in our country here, because we have very misplaced priorities. We are doing things that are no value to us. And the first development must start with human development. We have to develop our people. If we don't develop our people, we have projects that cost, like 50 million here, dollars I'm talking, when the Gambians are dying of hunger. There's extreme poverty in this country. Last time I had, they laid foundation stone for the Radisson Blue Hotel. They said $100 million. And I said, these people, they must be crazy. $100 million for the Gambia, for a hotel that is partly owned by Gambia and a partner, $100 million? We have to wake up. Our people are joking. $100 million. You know $100 million in Gambian dollars is? I know you all know. $100 million US just to build a hotel. How many hotels do we have here? And they haven't given us enough employment. 100 million. If you take 100 million and you distribute it among the regions, you can create a meaningful employment that will employ more than 10 or 20 or 30,000 Gambians. And the returns will be so beneficial that within 5 years it will have a major impact. It will transform those regions. But you build a hotel, there's a partnership between the government and a partner. And I'm telling you this, I can say this now, because, they can take any step. It's just a way of putting Gambians. Because if you give me $100 million, and the work that they say they will do with that $100 million to build one hotel, I can build 3 times what they wanted to do with the $100 million. So we have to stop fooling ourselves. We have to know our priorities. We have to rearrange our priorities. And mistakes have happened. So many wrongs have happened. The government must take up ownership. They must not be scared. They must not be afraid. It is Gambians that we are dealing with. It is Gambians that we are talking about. We are all Gambians. Let us face each other honestly. Let them come up and say, okay, we've made several mistakes in the past. Now we are trying to do what is right. Let us come together and work for the best of this country. I think on that note, because time is going, and I wanted to do a little bit in Mandinka and Wolof, so I guess we can stop here until another time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency Honorable Ibrahima Taboramane. That was a lengthy and a fruitful speech. I think the journalists, you have heard everything that is said. He touched different areas of development of this country, being it security, which is the first priority as a nation. We all know our sovereignty has been jeopardized since the coming of this Second Republic, or Third Republic, sorry. He touched also education, health, agriculture, infrastructural development, and all sorts. So, People's Alliance Party is here for the Gambia, as the name implies. People's Alliance Party. The party is for the Gambians and is for the serious Gambians, for that matter. We are tired of being fooled by politicians. Our manifesto, as he rightly said, I think you can go over it, is a serious manifesto which comes to make the changes that the Gambian people yearns for, the changes that we need, the changes that we want to see. We are tired of being clappers of politics, just clapping for the leaders, being given false promises, and this is why this party is established. And as I started before, it is a newly born baby, but for slowly we will crawl, and then we will walk, and we will run, and inshallah Rabbi, we will reach to the promised land. On that note, I will give you journalists for you to ask questions. As we said, make it precise and then fast, because there is no more time. Then later on, he will come to the local language and then give out a short speech in Wolof and Mandinka. From there, we wrap up the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that, because employment is very critical. First, I'll say this is long term, but we must admit, and we have to overhaul our education system. This one, I want to address it to the people that we believe in the education sector and they're smart. We have to revamp our education sector. Unfortunately, we are not creating producers. We are not creating people who can, generate employment. We are creating, mostly consumers and people who will only depend on others to give them employment. I will give you, like what we mentioned now, we said 100 million will give to every region. All people have talents, and people are good at different things. And those talents we must identify. We must nurture, we must assist, we must help. For a start, I'll give an example. We've said for road construction, that is happening in this country. We've seen road construction has been given to people over $1 billion, like $20 million, $30 million, $40 million. There's going to be competition among the regions. If you go to every region, you have, the mayors and you have the chairman. We said what we'll do is that the first employment when it comes to, road construction and civil engineering and building, Gambians will be at the forefront. What we will do is we'll buy construction materials, these heavy-duty materials that are needed for construction. In the First Republic, I know they used to have what was called the PWD. And that PWD has some equipment that they can at least do some maintenance work and some, light road construction for the feeder roads. Now, imagine if we had brought in our own equipments, and let's say every region, we give them some equipment that they need for road construction. and tell them that now you will be partly responsible for building your own roads. And then we take Gambians who are engineers, civil engineers, who are road engineers, who are technicians, who are operators. And then they'll be absorbed by those companies. Now, this will be local companies now. And then the equipments will be owned by either the region or the municipality or individuals that we will empower so that they can have these companies. So they will come together. They'll be the ones to be building the roads. If we need any expert, we can bring in maybe a few, 1 or 2 from outside, and then bring them in the country. They can work with them, and within 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years, we will master the art of building roads. We wouldn't need to give contracts to outsiders to build roads for us, because all you need to do to build roads is you need the equipment. You need engineers, but you need roads and sand and water and basalt. Those are all easily available. Those ones, why would you outsource it? All you need is simple expertise and equipment, and we can buy the equipment. And most of the experts are available in the country. So the few experts, maybe 1 or 2, can come and join them. You can pay them the salary that they deserve, but then within a few years, we will be building our own roads and money will stay in the country. The other thing that I've mentioned, if you look at the waters that we are drinking, this thing, the machines that are needed to build this thing is less than $10 million. $10 million. You have everybody here. I'll tell you, if you put you guys together, like 10 of you, and then the government invests $10 million, or let's say $100 million, and brought in 10 of those equipments and spread it across the country and said, okay, Gambians, we'll take 10 of you. You will give this one and loan it to you. You operate it, and then you will pay the 10 million within, let's say, 5 years. You create employment. It is their own company. They will be more responsible, and they'll make profit. And within a short time, they will be players, stakeholders in that sector of the economy. That is what you do with every sector. So you look at our women, the gardeners, they have the vegetables. Tomato paste, the sachet, what you need, the equipment to buy it, to be able to make tomato paste. It's no more than $5-6 million. You can buy it easily in China. The tomatoes that they make, you've seen them. Usually they'll rot. They'll decay. They don't have a market for it. They could have bought those machines easily, brought it in the country, let it be closer to the gardens. Once they harvest, you should have stores and warehouses there. They can use those machines and then process them to ketchup. We don't have to bring ketchup in this country anymore. There's so many examples like that. We've seen even farming. Those who do farming, they are in groundnuts or the corn. You can get the oil. What you do is take the warehouse and the equipment closer to the farms. So when they do the farming, they can transport it to the warehouse. They will process it to ready-made foods, and we can sell them locally. If we don't do that, we'll be importing everything. Every single thing that we consume in this country is being imported. Imagine if all countries in this world shut their economies and we are not able to import, how will we survive? We have to come up with plans and strategies to be independent, to be able to produce our own needs. But right now, there's nothing that we're able to produce in this country that we need. Not rice, not groundnut, not vegetables, and we have arable land. And it's unfortunate. If you're here, if you live, if you go to the up country, you'll find that even water is a problem. Government cannot be creative enough to think of a borehole. If an individual can take $1 million, $700,000, and buy equipment, borehole equipment, and be drilling boreholes and making money, what governments should do. That's why in our motto we said PURE, P-U-R-E. Progress, we need progress, unity, responsibility, and empowerment. That is, government must empower its citizenry. If you leave it to us by ourselves, we cannot develop, because we don't have the resources, we don't have the money that it takes to initiate the process. Even some of you who want to be journalists, you have the ideas, you are the ones on the ground, you are the ones who do the work, you know you can do the work very well, but because you don't have the money, you cannot buy these equipments. They're very expensive. So what will happen? You will know better than me, but because I can buy the equipment, so I'll employ you, and if you don't like it, fine, I'll fire you and bring another person. And I'll pay you whatever I want, I'll make the bulk of the money, so you'll be disgruntled and complaining when you go to your wife. There's no fish money, but that has to change. So we have to take, that's why I said we have to take ownership of our economy. I'll tell you, there are 101 ways to create employment in this country.
Okay, next.
Yes.
From a senior IT official, he
Yes.
said,
Yes.
your registration, today we are here to celebrate
Yes.
have some delay.
Yes.
And in court, he called you a man of courage. So I would like to ask, what is behind the courage? Why were you not discouraged at some point? What have you seen, or what do you see that motivated you to keep pushing to make sure your family is realistic?
I believe that is because of the situation that I've seen the Gambia in. I've been opportune enough. I was fortunate enough to travel to several places in the world. I've been in the US. I've gone to Canada. I've gone to Portugal. I've gone to some European countries. In Africa, I've traveled also in some countries. But then, this is where I was born. This is the country that I love. And if I have it my way, this country will be the best country in the world. And there is a saying in our religion, it says, "Hubul watanu minal iman." It says, love of country, the love of your country is part of faith, it's part of iman, it's part of worshiping God. For me, I'm not looking for fame. I'm not looking for money because I have money. But there is a special reward for leaders who are just, who are honest, who are fair to their people. And that comes from Allah, and that's all I am looking for. But what I wanted to do is to leave a legacy. I've seen people, when I was studying in the US, I used to follow this guy a lot, Lee Kuan Yew. He was the premier of Singapore, and they called him the founding father of Singapore. I know I was inspired. I listened to his speech. I followed his autobiography, and I was inspired by him. Then I was not even thinking of getting into politics. And I was saying, I wish the Gambia, we have leaders with foresight, like this guy. And if you see how that guy has transformed Singapore, Singapore is several hundred times ahead of the Gambia, I can tell you that. Several hundred times ahead of the Gambia. And it's a country just like the Gambia, an entry port country. The location is just similar to the Gambia. The independence was about the same time. All British colonies, English speaking, with no resources basically, just the human capital. And they tapped that human capital. They were colonized by Britain, but I'll tell you their standard of living is above Britain today. Ask anybody who knows Singapore. British are leaving Britain to go to Singapore for employment. Isn't that what we want? Don't we think that is possible for the Westerners to leave their country and come to the Gambia for employment? And in fact, it's happening. Unfortunately, what is happening is that we have been crowded out. That's what I don't want. What I don't want is I went to the US, and I know that Americans, they have a better standard of living than me. And the Gambians that I know in America, Americans have better standard of living than Gambians and other Africans. I've gone to Portugal, I've seen the same thing. I haven't gone to the Middle East, but it's exactly the same thing. Saudis, Qataris, Kuwaitis. When you go to China, the Chinese, they own their country. They have better living standard than any foreigner who goes to their country. But in this Gambia, it's the direct opposite. If you go outside, look at the most expensive cars. It's driven by non-Gambians. So majority of us here will look for a taxi. Or you'll be lucky if the company gives you a car, to move around, and then at the end of the day, you park it. You even control how much fuel you've been wasting. I don't mind if I go to your country, you're better than me. But I want if I come to my country, I have a better standard of living. That's the only thing that will give us respect. You see, there is globalization. And because when it happened, our people did not understand the concept of globalization. Those who said globalization, that we open up our economies, we open up our resources, because they have more experience, they have more resources, they have what it takes than us. So when they come, they take the best part of everything that we own, so we are left with nothing. And that is why we are backward. And that is what has to change. And because the Gambians that I know, the ones that I interacted with, farming is part of my livelihood. I mean, I do normal work just like you guys. I work in the office from 8 to 4. I know how it feels. I know the pain. Before the 10th of the month, you're going to the corner shop looking for, to give you a credit of rice or bread or what have you. That's what happened. And at the end of the month, you try and look and borrow here and there and then try to pay. That's the way we are living. But we cannot continue living like that. We cannot continue being like beggars, in our own country. It's very unfortunate. And that is the reality. And the Gambians, that when I go to the farm, I walk with them, I look at women. I've seen women, I've seen young women, young boys who are very young, younger than me, far younger than me. They look twice older than me. Because of the constant struggle, they are not sleeping in good houses, they don't have good water, there's no electricity, they don't eat good food. For a human's living standard, it should be above that. We have failed as a country, and we have to face reality. It's not just to be critical of government, but we have failed. Let the government come back to the drawing board. They have up to 2026. Let them come back to the drawing board and try to seriously, sincerely, and realistically